Welcome everyone to the Board of Commissioners of Spalding County fiscal year 2014 budget. This is a public hearing, and if you would like to speak, there was a sign-up sheet, and you will still have an opportunity to sign up if you care to make a comment. Anybody need to sign? Okay. I would like to read a disclaimer for citizen comments. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and topics and the topic in which they will speak on. Speakers must direct all comments to the board only. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics and relate to matters pertinent to the jurisdiction of this Board of Commissioners. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizens' comments or answered by any of the commissioners. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during this meeting. The first order of business is discussion and comments relative to the proposed fiscal year 2014 budget. William, will you give us an update?
Yes, ma'am. The proposed budget that you see in front of you, according to state law, we must have a balanced budget where revenues equal expenditures. Over the 3 budget review work sessions that the county commissioners had, all of the changes that were made during that, all of the concessions made by Public Works, the tax commissioner, Park and Rec have all been figured into the budget, proposed budget, along with 50% longevity, no funding for long-term disability, and then the several line items in there. There were some reductions by county commissioners for their training and travel, things of that nature. The balanced budget that you see before you includes funding of a 3/4 meal tax increase on a $100,000 house. That is $28.50 for a 3/4 meal increase. It also, in order to balance, the commissioners chose early on, rather than furlough days, to do across-the-board salary reductions. It includes a across-the-board salary reduction of 1.186%. We went back and recalculated all the benefits based on that 1.186%. And Friday, we sent to the department heads and elected officials and constitutional officers a copy of their budget, including line items, salaries, and benefits, for them to review to make sure that everything was correct. There were a couple of keying errors, things like that made, but we've gotten those corrected. And I sent you an email regarding insurance. On the agenda tonight, the property and casualty, general liability, and automobile insurance. We were advised earlier this year by our carrier Travelers to anticipate a 60% increase in premium. We budgeted a 40% increase in premium because we went out to bid with insurance again this year, and we also got pricing from the ACCG, Intergovernmental Risk Management, IRMA. You'll see that we actually got some very good bids on our insurance, and we are recommending renewing with our local agent with a company called One Beacon, and which will provide approximate savings in next year's budget of approximately $145,000. We budgeted, as I said, a 40% increase. Wound up with less than that, so that is the difference in what was budgeted versus what the actual expenditures are. Our property and casualty insurance has a renewal date of June 1, so every year we pay the insurance in June, but we are paying for the period June 1, 2013 through May 31st, 2014. And so on and so on and so on. So next year we'll be paying for, unless we change the due date, we'll be paying for that same period. And a part of this is also changing our insurance due date so that we will have a more concrete number for insurance when we're preparing the budget and don't have to result on estimates like we did. But that is the budget before you. I sent out an email to the constitutional officers and elected officials on Friday, asking again if they were going to participate in this 1.186 across the board salary reduction. Met with several members this morning. Just got word from the Superior Court judges as well. Will Simmons called me from the Superior Court judges. Essentially, the elected officials and constitutional officers said that they were not in favor of any, let me get the consensus was they do not support an across-the-board salary decrease for any county employee, elected official, or constitutional officer. The Superior Court judges were reluctant, but wanted to clear up that it would not impact their supplements that they receive, and that is correct. It only would affect the Griffin Judicial Circuit employees, which are paid for. We're the administering county, and anytime we do budgets, those employees are subject to the same rules that the county does, whether we give an increase, decrease, whatever. So that is where we are with the budget. A couple of you had asked a couple of things at the retreat. I was directed to put in a assistant county manager position. That was in the requested budget, was not in the recommended budget. I failed to point that out during the budget review sessions. Also, with the reductions that we proposed, I wanted to remind everyone that we only have $75,000 for the Commissioner's Contingency Fund. We reduced it to $75,000. We spent more than that this year, but we had cut it back from the original proposed $150,000. Over the years, we've trimmed that back. In the 80s, when I first went to work here, we set $500,000 as the contingency. And over the past 8 or 10 years, we've scaled that back very much from 250 on down to 150, and now down to 75,000. So those are the major issues. The budget does include restoring funding for the 4 detention officers that originally was not in the recommended budget, and the fire department officers that were not in the in the recommended budget. I've spoken with many of you today about several options, things of that nature. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Without the cooperation of the elected officials and constitutional officers, it would mean that approximately, and Bill is working on a precise number for me, but approximately 60% of the employees then would not be subject to the 1.186 salary reduction. The remaining 40% are those under the control of the Board of Commissioners would be subject to that, and there are several alternatives for how we can address that. Reduction in those elected official and constitutional officers' total budget, things of that nature, all have been discussed today.
So at this time, we'll have public comment. The first person is Tim Branger, 8673 Highway 109. Zebulon. Come to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
My name's Tim Branger. I live in Zebulon, Georgia, 8673 Highway 109. Been employed with Public Works for 16 years. Most of them been real good. I enjoy working for Spalding County. But I just think that the employees are taking a pretty good beating over the last several years. We've lost our 8% retirement that they used to make. We've lost all that. and I can't talk, I can get nervous and tore up and everything, but, I just think there's different ways you make a look at this, you know. A lot of counties are sitting with the 4-day work week to save them money. There's, money that still be cut from the county itself. Some of our people today come with us with some papers where they had paid Paragon over $1 million in the last 2.5 years. If the engineering is that important, they look to me like they could hire them a full-time engineer for a whole lot less money than that. Just put them on the payroll. But I'm sure that there's different things to do instead of cutting the employees' heads off. We know y'all run the county, y'all the head of the county. And sometimes we treat it like the ass end of the county. But the employees are the backbone of Spalding County. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be getting anything. Just like I was in the paper the other week, Mr. Wilson's retirement benefit went from 15 to 18%. We get 1%. At my salary, I get $400 a year. Mr. Wilson gets $22,950 a year. I'm not knocking him, you know, he's got a good thing going, that's good for him. But that's 57 and a half of my stuff. If 57 and a half people to make what I make could be, that's what he gets for his retirement. I don't know. I just feel like we done took all we can take. I hate for anybody to, I don't want nobody to lose a job, furlough day. I think everybody could do a little better and not hurt anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jay Garner, 1515 Williamson Road.
I'm Dave Garner, Public Works Director with Spalding County. I just want to say, I've got a good group of guys as well as all of the department heads in the county. We past several years, we've asked them to do a lot more with a lot less every year. And this year's been a tough year on y'all and a tough year on us. And, you know, it's got to the point where you walk back in the morning time, you want to give the guys the work orders, and it bears on you a lot when you go back there and, you know, some of them guys, they can't hardly make it from month to month, from week to week. And we cut from them again. And me as a department head has to walk back here, they looking at me. I've done all I can do. I've cut my budget. I've even volunteered to resign. Matter of fact, Mr. Wilson got it in his desk right now. They can take it, you know, if it gets down to their long-term disability, I'm willing to give up my salary benefits for the employees, at least get the long-term disability back. I'm not looking for no job. I'm not turning in that reservation to want more money. I just want the employees to be treated right, and if I can help them out by doing that, then that's what it needs to be. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any comments on the board?
Quinn, I can wait just a minute. I talked to Jake last week. You know, they cut that timber out to Dundee for the lake. He recommended the pine trees in back of the house next to the prison. There's some pine trees back there. They need to be cut down. He said the limbs are falling down. They hitting the people's fence back there. The county's having to fix their fence when they do. To me, it looked to be better off just to cut those trees down. You know, it may not bring in much money, but it would help a little bit. Also, he brought up the thing that, about the pond dam out there, is, maybe let him and, he said, got somebody else who's worked on some dams out before, you know, on the side, is let them go before we pay somebody to go out there and study it. It costs us $30,000 or $40,000 to get a study on what needs to be done to it. In other words, Jake and them can't do it, then, you know, let them tell us they can't do it. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments? I think, that we would do that anyway. I think that anytime, well, I know in the last 3 years, anytime there's a project that we can do ourselves, we've what do you call it?
In-house. We've done it
In-house
Yes, ma'am.
engineering. So certainly, the suggestion is a good one, and we'll look at that. I know you didn't get a chance to look at the timber cutting over on the property that Springs gave us on Francis Street.
Actually, I do have that, and that's on your agenda tonight. There are several different parcels, including the Williamson Road parcel, that are on your agenda tonight. I think it's about 55 or 60,000 total from 6 or 7 different locations for timber. So, including Dundee Lake and the old Rock Quarry property, Williamson Road, and Carver Road.
Well, it's obvious to me that if we don't have the cooperation of the constitutional officers, that it's not fair to have 40% of the people take a direct cut in their take-home pay and 60% not. So that's an option, I think, that we need to consider taking off the board. Anybody else have any comments about that?
About taking the pay cuts off.
No, I mean that we can't adjudicate it equally.
Right.
If we're gonna, take that much out of someone's budget, and those people still get their same pay, while others are gonna be getting less in pay, there's no equity there. So I don't think that that's a workable option for us, because, just say, for example, the utilities, wherever they take it out of their budget, if something happens and it's a first responder, we're still gonna have to pay it. So they basically won't take a cut. So I don't think that's a viable option. We need to discuss how else we can obtain that, if that's our goal.
But you did say we could cut their budget more, didn't you?
Cut who's cut?
Constitutional officer, we could cut their budget.
The way it works, you can reduce the amount of funding that you provide constitutional officers and elected officials by an amount equal to that. They're employees, since quote unquote, they are employees of that elected official, and they would have to be paid without the reduction, but say utilities, you can take the money out of electricity. But as Ms. Flowers Taylor said, if you came up to May and there was not enough money in the electricity budget, I don't think the commissioners would expect us not to pay the utilities and have the utilities turned off to the jail or whatever, that bill would be paid. So without having a real line item, I mean, you could say, yes, we're not gonna buy a car. And you could do that, but the operating budget is where you would take the money from, not the salaries and benefits.
But
If
that's
you were
not
to
true.
take the estimated savings from the insurance, we would be looking at a .5654 reduction in pay instead of a 1.186. That would cut it pretty much in half. Is that correct?
Pretty close. Those were the numbers that I came up with in the email that I sent you, yes, sir. Right now, it's at 3.08 furlough days, which is the 1.186. The proposed savings of 145,000 is about a day and a half, or 1.47 furlough days, or .5654 pay reduction for the insurance. Savings, projected savings in insurance if you vote tonight to go with One Beacon.
But, William, let me ask you a question. What was it that Mr. Granger was alluding to about the employees losing their 8%?
It's actually 4%. We have, right, with a 401A pension, for every percent up to 8%, the county would contribute 4%. So if the employee put in 8%, the county would contribute 4%. Tim, is that?
There's already.
No, sir, excuse me, if I can.
Come up to the podium.
When we first went, when I first come here, they just changed from the old original plans. I don't really know what that amounted to. But, they would match up to 8% in the beginning. If we put in 8, they would match 8. A couple of years went by and they said, well, we're going to cut it to match up half. If we put in 8, they would match 4 after the first cut. Then there's no match at all now. But it started off at 8, then went to 4, and that's nothing.
They used to put in 4, 10, you put in a mattress so you would get 8%. So
Well, I'm not wrong, excuse me.
the county used to put in 4% and the match, if it's in a, match half of it up to 8%, which you got to 8%, what Mr. Grant's talking
I was
about.
putting in 8, I thought we matched my 8.
Well, they was already putting in 4, and they matched half of it, and that's where the 8 comes
I was putting in 8, they were matching 8 to start with, I thought. I may be wrong, excuse me if I am, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We have had 3 pension plans, and Ms. Garrison was telling me that is when we had only defined contribution, we did have the 8% that he was talking about, but we discontinued that plan and went with the hybrid plan. Some chose to stay with that, but most chose to move over to the hybrid plan, which gave you a guaranteed defined benefit. But Tim, you're right, we've had like three
different ones.
or 4 different plans, and that's one that we discontinued. It was only in existence for maybe 3 or 4 years, a short
Then we went from matching 8 to matching half, plus we got the 1% a year.
1% deferred that we have now.
Right.
Yes,
And the 1% is all we're getting right this minute.
that is correct. That the county's paying.
Right.
But we are funding the 3 other plans as well for those who are still vested and covered in those plans. And that's why the contribution's about 1.3 million a year.
So Chipper, your suggestion is that we take the savings from one beacon to offset?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was just tossing that out as a consideration. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could put it in fund balance. But,
Well, I
I mean,
think,
it's just kind of put it out there for discussion. We need to start something.
yeah, we do, we really do. And, you know, we've got some issues with our fund balance and, but I think we need to kind of figure out what we're gonna do in terms of any equity. We know that there's gonna have to be some decrease. The thought is how we're gonna accomplish that, since we can't do it across the board successfully.
Madam Chairman, we did have someone come in late who would like to speak.
Okay. Mr. David Gamble, 129 Four Oaks, Griffin, Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr.
How you
Gamble.
doing? Sorry I'm late. I thought it was at 6 o'clock, so my apologies. And thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding this tough job that you've got ahead of you coming up. My name's David Gamble. I live here in Griffin. My family moved here in 1978. The purpose that I wanted to talk about was the struggles that you're going through and balancing whether to increase taxes, to cut heads, reduce the budget. We've got great people in position here in the county and in all roles and in all functions, absolutely. I feel like personally, and I speak only for myself, that I feel like the taxes that we pay are adequate to pay the jobs that we have. Many of you that are on the board here run businesses and are from a business background. And often when businesses, what they do is they forecast how things look 2-3 years down the road. And if they don't feel like the climate's going to be good for them to fiscally get through that situation in good shape, they reorganize, they realign, and they align their plan to what the business model is going to look like later. It's not layoffs so much as that they look at you know, the more I've been talking to people in different branches of the Spalding County government, I'm getting more and more confused. And what it is I don't understand if there's a review process here annually, but in companies, that's how it's done. You either meet the expectations, exceed them, or don't meet them. I don't know if we do that here. The HR folks can tell me, and I just truly don't know. But the way that private businesses do it is they look at what's coming up and they get ready to align that for the next year. And then folks that aren't on target are treated with a lot of dignity. They're not laid off. They fall out of the system because of realignment. They're treated with dignity. They're given severance packages. The company I work for actually gives 2 weeks of pay for every year that an employee's been there. They extend COBRA benefits. They help with job placement assistance. You say, well, what's the benefit of that? Well, it treats your employee, if you are going to look at that, instead of reducing cuts or installing furloughs, you actually, you reduce the need for those payments. And so the people can possibly go get another job in the private world maybe. But the main thing is just that they're treated with dignity. So you got a lean, crew, you got, a good workforce that everybody's been in place and is ready to move forward. The benefit is that it reduces future obligations and future overhead in the future. It builds confidence in your shareholders, and we're the shareholders because we pay the taxes, and that things are stable, things are under control, and things are running well. And I'm sure you guys individually get, and ladies, forgive me a bit, I'm sure you get plenty of ideas on things, but there's been a lot of talk in the papers about the new industrial park. Maybe for revenue generating things, we could, talk to some farmers about leasing that out, cutting the hay off of it. I'm sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this up and to speak. I walked in just a minute ago.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble.
Chairman Flowers Taylor, you had asked me earlier today, the 3/4 mil tax increase, if we chose to do a reduction in force, I utilized the average county employee salary of $35,900. That would be roughly 8 county employees who, at that salary, would take to make up that difference to balance the budget. But you had asked for that.
So 8 people will have to be terminated.
Yes, ma'am. At the 3/4 million, yes, ma'am.
Just throwing it out there. I don't want anybody to lose their job, but if the consensus is that you don't really want to make people get a pay cut, we gotta figure out something.
Can I ask something, Gordon?
Absolutely.
What do we use the $75,000 in contingency fund for? I mean,
What
I don't
would
know.
we use it for?
Yeah. I mean, what's it used for?
This year, we used it for some grant matching, we used it for some, in Park and Rec, I think we used some for the break programs between the
I think it was $1,200.
school year there. It's been used for several things, I can't off the top of my head recall, but,
Can we get by 1 year without having the $75,000?
without any,
Huh?
without any, no, sir, I wouldn't. There are
No.
things that just come up during the year.
That you can't do.
Okay, I just wanted to know.
Because I don't think we budget any matches for grants, do we?
No, ma'am. And as those come up, we utilize that for those as well.
So if we take $145,000, we're gonna save on the insurance, how much we still like?
It's essentially about $150,000 or the equivalent of 0.5, hold on just a second. 0.5654% across the board.
And there would be no decrease in pay for anybody, right?
No,
That's
that
what
would be 0.5654%.
It would cut the pay decrease in half. That's what it would do.
The only way not to have a pay decrease is to raise taxes 1 mil. To go from 3/4 to 1 mil. And then based on the previous numbers, that would generate $71,353 that could be put towards fund balance, building up fund balance. And that was before the insurance, because this was the last numbers that I gave you last Monday, Tuesday, whatever day we met last week.
So right now, with 3/4 mil tax increase, we're looking at about, for the average $100,000 home, you're saying it's $28.50.
Yes, ma'am.
So for 1 mil, we're looking at
$38.
$30.
Based on their standard homestead exemption of $2,000.
I have to say, I really, really am not, I'm really not for raising the taxes at all if we're still paying longevity pay. Because longevity pay is a bonus. That's what it was established at. I know there are, those who said that we needed to meet the pay scale. But these are, in ordinary times, that's one thing. These are extraordinary times. And, while nobody wants to lose their job, I think that it's hard to go out and say the taxpayers, we're gonna raise your taxes 1 mil, but our budget shows that we're paying a bonus. I mean, that's hard. I mean, I could certainly look at, across the board, no pay decrease. But I certainly can't vote for asking for a tax increase and we're paying any kind of bonus. I mean, that's a hard one. Yes, go ahead, Mr.
Everyone knows that Gwen and I have a difference of opinion when it comes to the term longevity pay. I respect her opinion and she respects mine, but I see longevity pay as being a moral objective, a moral obligation, and that it was put in place to offset the pay compression between our employees that had been here 10, 15, and 20 years. This has been in effect since 1996. And yeah, some people take it as a bonus, some people take it as a reward, but most people are taking it because if I were to come in the street today, off the street today, and get hired by Spalding County employee, as a Spalding County employee, without the pay, with the pay compression, with the 85% that our employees are being paid versus the 100% that the other like counties around us are being paid, we're already striking against our employees. It's our employees that provide the service to our community and get the things done. It's somewhat like Tim said earlier, we're the employees are the backbone. We all understand that, we all agree that, all 5 of us up here. And we are trying to negotiate the best way possible to facilitate the need of the taxpayer and the need of our employees. And hence, we're in a fix. And that's what we've got to come up with in the next couple of hours, or the next hour, 20 minutes it looks like. But the faith of this board is here to do the right thing. It's not here to hurt our employees, it's not here to hurt our taxpayers. I recommended a 1 mil rate increase to facilitate our taxpayers, to facilitate our employees and the need that our taxpayers are asking for in services. When one asks for the services, you've got to be able to provide them. And doing that, you've got to have the employees. We start cutting pay, we start cutting benefits like we've talked about doing, we're not going to have employees, and we're not going to have quality employees, which is going to affect our service to the community. There are the intangibles versus the tangibles, and that's what we have to consider, and that's what we've been considering. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to come back and revisit recommending a 1 mil tax increase.
So noted.
Again,
And let me just explain, and I hear what Raymond's saying, and I'm not gonna say that eventually, I may go that route, I don't know, but I think it's important that, you hear from me why I voted the way I did. It was a very tough decision, for me to actually put it out there. But I'm looking at this thing across the board here. I don't know what happened in the past. I don't know what happened 5, 6, 20 years ago on the board. I'm doing what I feel like today to make up for what has been done and what we need to do to gain in the future. And, the $20.50 tax increase, property tax, I have to look at also. I mean, look at county, our Spalding County as well. I mean, a lot of us are obviously, we are all county tax-paying people as well, but across the board, I think there should be a burden placed on everyone. And I know, with the employees, which I all do respect, I just felt like it should be evenly out. And that's why I voted for the 50% longevity pay when that was up for, because I didn't want to take the whole thing away. I felt like paying 50% would, show the employees that, that we do vitalize them and that we do respect what they do. But that's the reason why I put the 0.75 out there. Like I said, I understand after hearing today what we may need to do, but I just want to make it clear the reason why I actually decided on what I did last week, which has been very tough for me. I mean, I have to sleep with this at night. It was a very tough decision, and I have thought about this every day since then, but I just thought it was important to just explain why I voted the way I did this week.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So what's the pleasure of the board? We have a proposed budget, suggestion for a proposed budget from the last meeting. I need to understand that you said we're gonna have $145,000 in savings. There was nothing put in the budget for the assistant to the county manager for that position. So, y'all think that that's not necessary?
Well, there's a lot of things that are necessary, and
Yeah.
I think
Well-
I do think that's very, very necessary.
Yeah.
And but there are a lot of things that are necessary.
In my opinion, I don't think it's necessary right now. I mean, that's just $75,000 that we need to save. It's gonna add $75,000 more dollars to the hole we're already in.
Well, you do have $145,000 that you just saved, but, part of I see as part of the problem is that because, the county manager does not have an assistant, some things are not getting done. And I'm not saying not his job is getting done, but I was surprised to find out, I mean, he can't go around to every place and look and see how people are actually working, what they have as far as supplies or what they need to do, and that's really for the department heads, but,
Yeah, but,
You know,
I mean, you're right, I mean, he needs to be going to the departments, he needs to,
well, I'm saying that,
I
that's
know he
fine.
likes his little phone, and he can stay in touch with the world with his phone, but I still think he needs to be out there, and he needs to be going out to job sites and following up some things, checking on things and stuff like that, but right now, it's physically impossible, he's already 2 or 3 places at once.
Well, that's my point. So how do we expect him to do a good job
Right.
if we don't give him, the help? But, if that's the consensus of the board, that they don't want to consider that now, give him a head nod or whatever.
I don't think we should.
I think we do.
Okay.
He made the recommendation, he's got to live with it.
Now we're back to, actually, we just need to figure out what we're gonna do with the potential savings that are to come from the One Beacon policy. Do we put that in fund balance? Do we offset salary reduction.
Madam Chair, I think Commissioner Ray put a proposal for 1 meal of tax increase to clear our records up.
Right, he
We'll
did,
get
and,
back to that.
yeah.
Let's take one of them at a
I
time.
got too many people on social.
You were saying that, Chair.
Yeah, yes, I was saying that the potential $145,000 that we're supposed to save in reductions, we need to determine what we're gonna do, how we're gonna use that. We're gonna either put it in a fund balance to help offset, basically, rainy day expenses, or are we gonna, do we want to try and take all of it or a portion of it and set it and offset some of the reduction in pay?
What's your recommendation? William?
Yeah, you don't wanna ask him that.
He's the county manager. We approved the budget. He's supposed to be the one to come up with it.
I don't think.
Those are estimated savings right now. And with the elected officials and constitutional officers not participating in the across-the-board salary decrease, in order to keep it fair for all employees, we need to look at other ways to get that 1.186%. It is the equivalent of 3 days, and it has been discussed today that we do not pay for 3 holidays which are currently being paid for. If we go that route, I would recommend that the holidays January through June of 2014, there are 4 of them: New Year's Day, MLK holiday, Good Friday, and Memorial Day. Would recommend that the 3 not be paid would be MLK, Memorial Day, and Good Friday. That would spread them out. But we may again run into problems with implementing that with elected officials as well. So there is really not an easy decision to be made. You could choose to use 90,000 or roughly of this and have, but then again, you're looking at an across-the-board increase that's not going to be adhered to by those officials. So what do you do?
Will you elaborate on what the problem would be with the loss of vacation pay for vacation days?
The county commissioners do determine, and I may ask Mr. Fortune to chime in as well. When I was speaking with Bill before, I believe that we, the Board of Commissioners, set the holidays and whether or not each year they're paid or not. I do not, I am unsure now whether that would, the elected officials and constitutional officers would have to agree to that, or we could just,
Take it out of the budget.
well, as I said before, when you take things out of their budget, you can do that, but at the end of the year, there's not, you're not gonna not pay the utility bill, you're not gonna pay the food bill, you're not gonna pay.
Let me ask you a question. If you're salaried, you come in and your salary is, you're gonna be $36,000 a year. You got some people that come in, they make $17.39 an hour, or $22 an hour. If you're salaried, how does no holiday pay affect your pay? I mean, is your holiday pay included in that salary?
Yes, ma'am.
So do you back that out of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So,
You back those hours out of that pay period. Right now, we're on we have 24 pay periods. And if they fall within between the 9th and the 23rd and the 24th and the 8th, I believe, depending on those 2-week periods. And what I was trying to do was schedule those holidays so that you wouldn't be affected by 2 holidays in the same period. And that's why we chose those holidays. So, because if you pick well, no, you'd be okay even with the MLK and the New Year's Day holiday, because those are 2 separate pay periods. But it'd be in the same month, so, you take a 2-day pay hit in the month of January. We were just trying to spread them over months, where the across the board is spread over 12 months. Now, it'll be more concentrated, same amount of money, but it'll be more concentrated in a pay period.
You said that was 3 days. What about, what's the amount that the .8 would be? You said it was 3.8 days.
3.08,
Yeah, what is that in terms of dollars, the 08?
something like 16,000, I believe. And we can take that out of the insurance
Okay.
savings. Mr. Fortune, am I on base or off base with that holiday?
I think you're on base. You would simply, they wouldn't get paid for 8 hours.
And the problem I mentioned to you before with public safety, they are given their holiday hours at the beginning of each calendar year. And some departments allow them to take them immediately, and other departments, like the fire department, split it up, and you can take 5 the first 6 months of the year, and 5 the last 6 months of the year. So there is a chance that some could have already taken theirs for the calendar year 2013. So if we did it 14, that's when the new allocations come out, and then take it between the January and June 30th.
And what is our general fund balance?
2.7 million.
And that's how many days of operation, how many weeks? 4?
2.5 weeks.
Jenna, what did you calculate it last? How much do we spend a month? So it's about
2.5 weeks.
2.5, 3 weeks.
Okay, going back to what we were saying before, so just question here. If we were to raise the millage rate 1 to 1 mil, that 145, let's say we went, we do that toward the fund balance. The 1 mil gives us 71,000 in there as well, that we're saying.
Correct.
So we're looking at going into 216,000?
Roughly 200,000 would go into fund balance, yes, ma'am. And employee salaries would not be cut. You would have that option. With 1 mil, it would not require an across-the-board cut for salaries, and $71,000 could go into fund balance, and then the approximate savings of 145 on the insurance on top of that, so about 220 would go into fund balance.
Whatever it is that y'all want to do. You want to go back to your 1 mil conversation?
The increase of 1 millage rate will facilitate our employees, which will then also facilitate intangibly the needs of our community. And doing that, we provide, when you have motivated workers, they come in and do a better job. We all know that. That's part of the deal. But at the same time, it will not only facilitate our citizenship, it gives us an opportunity, like Mr. Gamble identified. And that is to start looking at the year out to 14-15, 15-16, and planning budgets ahead of time versus just the last 6 months prior to, the last 4 months prior to July of each year. We can sit down and say, we have this, we want to program this, this, and this in there. How do we get there? And instead of doing this exercise now, we have more time and utilize the things we've already started. The review of the financial policies and procedures, bids and contracting. Look at some things that have been brought up, like Parks and Rec looking at a lighting standard operating procedure for our fields in order to try to reduce those utility costs. Some other items of certain departments doing more maintenance around their own areas, which would reduce Parks and Rec and Public Works from going there and cutting grass and allow them to go out and maintain the roads better. It allows us to sit down and start planning in the future, for the future today. And I'm afraid that, in respect to everyone, a $0.25 mil, a $0.5 mil, and $0.75 mil will facilitate our need for this year and this year only on what we have to look at for 2014. But it will not, I'm afraid that if something goes wrong financially, something happens structurally to a building, something happens to AC unit, things of that nature, we're going to be caught in a blind spot. And I would much rather, for the benefit of our employees and our taxpayers, not to put them in that position. If we don't have a blind spot, those funds would then go into the reserve, thus protecting our employees, thus protecting our taxpayers, and that's what we're trying to do here. And that's part of the reason, plus things I've already stated, I've pushed for and requested a $1 million.
So, let me just make sure that I understand you, Commissioner Ray. You think that a $1 million tax increase on the taxpayers to offset any decrease in salaries is gonna benefit the taxpayers? Is that correct?
Through services, yes.
So what happened to, we're all in this together, and these cuts need to come from everybody. Right now, it just sounds like the taxpayers are getting.
Well, that's not true. We've done away with the long-term disability. That's $92,000, which is gonna cost our employees more to do that. We held the line on medical, but at the same time, out-of-pocket expenses have increased for our employees by holding the line on medical. And it's not so much, and then increasing taxes, the employees that we have that live in Spalding County are gonna be paying the same taxes as well, along with the taxpayers. It's not that they're exempt, but when you sit down and you consider the tangibles and the intangibles, the things that you cannot touch. A taxpayer wants to walk into the courthouse, the jail, here, and be treated with courteously, respectfully, professionally. I don't think that there's going to be a difference in that, but at the same time, I want our employees to say, we're all on the same ship. We've made sacrifices, and we're asking you to do a sacrifice. Because last year we didn't do a tax increase. 2011, there was a tax rollback, so
That was an increase.
that was an increase, but it wasn't something we planned on. It was something that came out at the end of the year because of the way the taxes rolled out. But what it comes down to is we asked not to cut services. That was one of the 3 priorities we gave William. Not to cut services, to hold taxes, and to, what was the third one, William?
No reduction in force.
Yeah. And we saw we can't do that. So we've got to try to facilitate the need of the taxpayer, which is the services they demand and require. If we don't maintain our workforce, we can't provide those services. Or we're providing reduced services.
Okay, so since we said we didn't want to have reduction in force, we didn't want to reduce services, and we didn't want to raise taxes. Now it just seems like it's just all about raising taxes. Why didn't we go back and look at a combination of reduction in force, reduction in services to achieve this before we come up with a number I'm just saying, because,
Then let's
Give-
consider it. I'm good, I'm for it, let's consider it. I mean, do we need a reduction in force when we can actually do the 3 holidays?
no, I mean, that puts it as, at that. I mean, I'm thinking, I could see offsetting, what did you say a quarter meal was, two?
A quarter mil
Uh-huh.
in tax,
In tax.
on a $100,000 house, or?
No, in general, the expected revenue.
Okay, 1 mil is 1.4 million, half is 350,000.
Okay, so, I'm just gonna throw this out here. The $145,000, I suggest that we take whatever William said, $90,000 or $95,000 out to reduce the 1 day of work loss. That will leave us at 2 days, since he took the other 16,000 out for the .08 days. So, reduction of 2 paid holidays. If we go with 1 meal tax increase, then I think that those funds should go to fund balance, since we only have 3 weeks worth of fund balance left. If our revenues change at the end of the year, we can, as we get through this assessment process, we can go back and look at this and maybe be able to reinstate payment for those holidays. But that's, to me, that would be the fairest way across the board. I still don't agree with paying longevity pay, but obviously I'm in a minority again about that. But, I think that that's kind of the minimal scale. I mean, we found some savings, we take them and we contribute them towards the less reduction in pay. At 1.186, a person who made $36,000 a year, that reduction in pay would be $420 a year, right? I think that's what you said.
426, yes.
So that was more like $120 a month, or, no, it was less than that a month, $40 a month.
Roughly about $1.25 a day.
And just to be clear on something, the long-term disability, that 92,000, have we already talked about, is that money's already included in this amount here?
It was taken out of,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I
It's
was gonna say
sorry.
somewhere. Okay.
So, Chairman Flowers, let me, 1 mil, utilize 90,000 of the savings to reduce furlough days or non-paid days from 3 to 2. So it'd be 2 unpaid holidays. And then use the remainder of the insurance savings and the funds generated by the 1 mil to increase fund balance. Okay?
And I'm just gonna say it anyway, part of my suggestion was no longevity pay, but I know it won't get past this part of the test. Just saying.
Okay.
Okay, I threw it out there. Anybody want to swat at it?
Any funds saved will go into fund balance, correct? I mean, into the reserve.
Yes.
And should we find that we can sufficiently plan for the next year's budget, we could offer a rollback, if possible.
In what year?
14, 15.
Okay.
I mean, 13, 14 is what we're talking about now, right?
Right.
Yes. So
But
14,
possible-
15, if we played our cards right, we facilitate and we tighten down and start planning ahead, we should be able to better forecast 14, 15, and 15, 16. Pending any more economic hurricanes.
You know, there's no way to do that, because as soon as we don't do that, then we'll get another unfunded mandate from the state, which means that's part of our problem right now, is that we've got so many of them, things that the state was paying for in order to fix their budget, they dumped them on us, and now we gotta pay for them. I mean, we didn't just get broke and didn't manage well. It's because we're paying for stuff that the state was paying for over the last 6 years. So, I mean, and that's not our fault, that's not the employee's fault, it's not the taxpayer's fault, but we're all getting,
We stuck with it.
Yeah.
so I'm saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, when they tell us now you gotta pay for the juvenile court system and how to figure out how you're gonna rehab people, they tell us this is a program, then they sit here, now you figure out how you're gonna pay for it.
They should be giving the money back when they give us these mandates.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but that's not how it's working. So, yeah, I agree with you, we can try to forecast it, but as a gentleman was saying before, we're not a revenue generating government. You know, if we were the city of Griffin, I love it how the city of Griffin can say, you know, no tax increase this year. Yeah, all of our water bills went up, all of our electricity went up, our stormwater went up. They're a money-making machine, they can do that and give a raise. But we don't have that ability because we're a constitutional government. You know, we have to operate on our taxes, so, you know, we're not just stuck in between a rock and a hard place. We're like, the rock went down a hole in the ground and, you know, we're in the dark with this. So it's very hard, and, you know, the thing that I just wanted to see is that we try to spread it equally. And I know, you know, like I said, I don't want to see anybody lose their job. But, you know, maybe we need to look deeper at some services that we provide. I know that the taxpayers demand certain things, but maybe there's some extras we've been running out doing that we might not need to be doing. So, and I think someone had asked me earlier about the hotel motel funds, and they were concerned because, you know, how can we go out and spend money on parks and projects like that? And those funds are designated funds that have to be used for only projects that will bring tourism or bring business to Spalding County. Or I'm not sure what the word is.
Promoting tourism.
Right. So we can't use that money for anything else. We can't put it in the general fund. So I think there's, you know, I know before I became a commissioner, I didn't know the difference in designated money and undesignated money, but it would be great if we could use some of that, but we can't. So that's kind of where we are. I also wanted to say that if the tax revenues come in, they're better than they are. If we can get a substantial revenue from the timber that we're planning on cutting, you know, if we get the 911 800 megahertz money, if we figure out how we're going to do our contracts and our bid, we can work out our bid process. You know, there may be the potential to roll those holidays back. They won't happen until January, correct?
And I assumed part of your proposal was that if we did the 2 holidays, it would be from 2 holidays during the period January 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2014.
So I mean, that's I can't guarantee that, but it's certainly a potential. But with what we got to work with here, we can't guarantee much more than that, I don't think.
That's why I like your suggestion of putting some of that back to fund balance. I think we need to do that. We need to start thinking about recouping this somewhere.
Jennifer?
I'm okay with it. Not comfortable, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of squirming over here too. Bart?
I got anything to say.
Okay. Well, anybody want to entertain a motion? Oh, no, we don't have to vote. This is a public hearing.
Well,
Can you summarize?
you don't have to have a vote, but I would like to have a consensus so we can finalize the budget to get it ready for first reading on the 17th. I really do need a consensus, and so I can put this budget to rest.
Would you, Madam Chair, could we summarize what we identified?
All right, the proposal to be looked at, 1 mil tax increase, utilize $90,000 of the insurance savings to reduce from 3 days to 2 days the unpaid holidays. Those unpaid holidays will be during the period January 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2014. And all the remaining funds go to increasing our fund balance.
Did we last year, did we give authorize an unpaid holiday last year?
We took away a floating holiday.
Oh, okay. Do they have a floating holiday now?
No, ma'am. There's only 10 holidays. The only, and you'll probably get asked, this year, Christmas Eve is on a Tuesday. Christmas Day is on a Wednesday. So, in years past, when we had funds available, the Board of Commissioners authorized those type holidays, but I don't foresee that request coming forward this year.
Let's see what we get when we get closer. So this suggestion includes 50% of the longevity pay.
Correct?
This suggestion includes a pay decrease that's gonna equal what percent? Can anybody tell me what 2 days is in percentage?
.77. Jenna, that is taking 16 hours divided by 2,000.
So we're going from
0.77%.
from 1.18 to 0.77.
On the average salary of $35,900. $276.43 divided by 24 pay periods. $11.52 per pay period. The equivalent of. But these will be taken as holidays, so they will be taken during the months.
Is everybody gonna take those now? I mean, constitutional officer, the employees gonna take them too?
Yes, sir. That is the plan.
What if they say they're not?
Well, we can't tell the constitutional officers not to be paid for a holiday.
The constitutional officers themselves, we can't adjust their salary.
But the employees,
The employees, we're gonna have to check the legality. I think we can do this, but I can't guarantee you right now. Mr. Fortune, you wanna come in?
I think you can do it, but we'll check it.
because this is not fair across the board. I just can't see cutting 2 furlough days to these and not giving to all of them. All of it's tax money.
Well, yeah, but the state determines what a constitutional officer gets paid. I mean, so we can't, I mean, just because they don't wanna participate, you can't make them participate. I mean, technically, we don't have to do it either, but we all agreed that we would. So, but in terms of the vacation days, if I understand correctly, the Board of Commissioners set the paid vacation policy and select the days, just like we had a floating holiday, we can take it away if we want to.
So we
Yeah,
can
they'll give
take
us
away
a fine.
taking away holidays instead of furlough days, so they, and that would affect all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that is, I think, the consensus, that what you read is what everybody agrees to.
Okay. That is what we will finalize the budget with. And again, just to clarify, that is a 1 mil tax increase, utilizing $90,000 of the insurance savings to reduce from 3 to 2 the unpaid holidays. Those holidays will be designated between January 1, June 30th, 2014. All remaining funds go to increasing our fund balance. All previous conditions made by the board, 50% longevity, no long-term disability, and reinstating the funding for the detention officers in the jail and the positions in the fire department. Okay? Thank you.
Chair, move to adjourn so we get to the next meeting.
Have a motion by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Gardner to adjourn. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Seventh inning stretch, right?